What's up, Herminators? Hermes here. So today I'm going to show you guys an update of the Tempo Rogue deck that I showed you guys previously. There's a couple of problems with my Tempo Rogue deck. One is that there's not enough cycle, and two, the curve was a bit too high, so there are some cards that I would actually never play throughout the whole game, like Sneasel Shredder for example. So for the two zombie chows, I replaced it with one Loot Hoarder and one Thalnos. The reason for that is because I needed more cycle throughout the deck, and Loot Hoarder can also fend off early aggression, and Thalnos synergizes with a lot of our spells. It can either give us more reach or do an AoE clear with Fan of Knives. I also removed BGH for Fan of Knives. The reason for that is because BGH was being too redundant because I had two copies, and Fan of Knives gives us a nice AoE clear with some cycling. Another card that I replaced is Sneasel Shredder, and I replaced it for Sap. I know this might be weird, but Sneasel Shredder actually never really saw play whenever I played this deck, and whenever it is in my hand, there's really no time to actually play that card. So I actually removed this for Sap. Sap is actually a very nice removal early and does give you a lot of tempo, so that's the reason why I'm playing this card in this deck, and it works out really nicely. The last card I replaced is Skulker, the Dark Iron Skulker for Azure Drake. The reason why I did this is because I needed more cycling, as I said before, and it synergizes nicely with our two Fan of Knives, and since I have two Fan of Knives, I don't really need Dark Iron Skulker anymore. So this is a nice overall deck with a bunch of cycling and also giving us great tempo, and these are the reasons why I did these changes. And now I'm going to show you guys a couple gameplay video of how the deck is going. I did have a nice win streak around rank 4, so I'm going to show you guys that right away. So the first matchup is against a druid. This is actually the most requested matchup against the fast druid. Many people don't know how to deal with this deck with the Tempo Rogue, so I'm actually going to show you guys what my thought process is and stuff like that. So what you mainly want to do right now is mulligan for a really early curve. The reason for this is because Druids has a really hard time coming back if you gain the board early, because their only AoE removals or comeback mechanism is only Swipe and Wrath. Swipe is not really a sufficient AoE clear because it does 4 damage, it does 1 each to every creature, and Wrath is only a single target minion, so they really have to focus on using their minions on board and their taunts to get rid of your creatures. So right now I have a really nice early curve. I do have the Haunted Creeper. I'm definitely going to play that right away. The reason why it's so hard for the Druid to take care of this deck is because I have a lot of sticky creatures. No matter how hard he removes them, I still have something on the board because of all the death rattles, like the Haunted Creeper and the Pilot Shredder. The only thing that you really have to play around is Swipe. The only way a Druid is going to win is if he swipes really well, like swipe hard enough that they have the board to their side. So you really have to play around Swipe. So right now I can't really do anything, so I just weapon up and hit him in the face with my Haunted Creeper. So right now he innervates something. This is actually pretty bad for us because, whoa, it's even a Turzin too. But it isn't actually too bad. I can actually handle that. I do have a Backstab, Abusive Sergeant, and stuff like that, so I'm pretty much going to use my Abusive Sergeant into Backstab in order to get rid of that Emperor Turzin, because I don't want him to have more than one proc. If Emperor Turzin does have more than one turn of using its effect, then it's really going to be hard for me because I have to consider the fact that he has reduced combo. Right now he might have reduced combo, but it's actually not as bad, so I can actually play around it, because it's around 7 mana where he can do his combo. So at a very pessimistic type of point of view, that's what I would think. He would have combo at 7 mana. Right now he does play Lothab. I think this is actually a bit early to play Lothab, but I guess like you just want tempo since I am a bit ahead on board. I can actually clear this quite well. I can either play Dark Iron Skulker, deal 2 damage to Lothab so that I can finish off with my minions, or I could play Pilot Shredder and just trade everything in, including my face. I don't really like using my face against the Druid, is because I want to stay way above 14 health, especially now that he has this Emperor activated, which is sort of bad. I do have to consider that. So yeah, I do use my Dark Iron Skulker, and I do trade it off with my minions on board while staying healthy at the same time. I always like to keep my health high against a druid because you don't know when he will combo out at you with like the big creatures, and suddenly when you're behind on board and he combos down with the creatures on board, then you're really behind. So right now he does use the Wrath and then summons the Azure Drake, giving a slightly amount of tempo. Right now it's not that bad. I can gain tempo back to my side by playing the Pylo Shredder into the Eviscerate and attacking the druid for 1. And I'm not gonna use my dagger. The reason for that is because I want to keep my dagger to control the board. Always keep the dagger to control the board unless you're playing against aggro matchup when you have to push for damage. Always keep the dagger for board control. Okay, right now he silences my Pylo Shredder. It's a little bad for me, but it's still very manageable. A 2/4 is not that threatening, and I do have the Eviscerate. I'm not going to plan on eviscerating the 2/4. The reason for this is because it's really not worth it. Even if he has combo right now, he can't really burst me down from 29. So at this turn, like turn 7, as I said before, he might have combo. Well, I'm not gonna worry too much because the 2 attack is actually not that good. Right now he does swipe, so thinking about that, he didn't swipe hard enough or good enough in order to make me lose tempo because I have lots of ways of coming back. One of the ways is using Sylvanas to eviscerate. Maybe now I will eviscerate the 2/4 since I did lose my board, because that actually does look quite bad. So yeah, I do eviscerate the 2/4 because I did lose my board, or else that wouldn't be worth it. I could just develop the board and keep pushing for damage, but I don't have my Azure Drake or my 1/1 Creeper anymore. So right now, my board is looking pretty good compared to his. Having Sylvanas on the board will force him to trade into it. If he doesn't trade into it, then I probably will grab a creature. So he does silence it. This is actually not that bad. I don't really care if he silences it because that 5/5 body is still pretty big. I can push a lot of damage. Next turn I can probably play Haunted Creeper and potentially Argus, both of them, causing a lot of damage and really hard for him to deal with too. We understand that he doesn't have 2 of his Wrath and he only has 1 swipe left in his deck. So his only removal is swipe at the moment. Right now I'm gonna develop my board as strong as possible. Gonna play my Creeper, potentially playing Belcher, but I think taunting out would be nice, but Belcher at the same time is quite good because it does contest with a lot of his creatures already. Well, Argusing is just as good, so I'm gonna do that. Have 6 damage, trade as much as possible. The reason for this is because I don't want him to use 2 of his creatures to trade into my Haunted Creeper and do like a nice swipe type of play, because he does have 1 more swipe in his deck if I remember correctly. So right now it is a little awkward for him. And right now his board is quite weak compared to mine, and which is nice because he has to clear or he's doomed, because I'm just going to push tons of damage. And using lore right there is actually pretty good for us, because which means that he's not really doing much this turn. Okay, so he does innovate something bigger with Druid of the Claw. That's not something we can handle. We can easily trade into that, so it's actually not that bad. We do draw into another Argus on 10 times better because we can now trade even more efficiently. We can actually Argus up the Sylvanas and the Argus, so that Sylvanas can trade into the taunt quite nicely while also surviving. It forces the Druid to hero power using his face to actually kill off the Sylvanas, because the Sylvanas will be left at 1 HP, and we can potentially use the Argus to trade into the 2/3, but I don't think I'm going to do that. We can even develop the Belcher here and it'll be just as good. I'm actually debating on playing, yeah, I'll Argus this instead. It actually is a lot nicer. It keeps my creatures more healthy. Like, the reason why I didn't Argus the Sylvanas is because if I do that, the swipe will come down and remove most of my board. This board really plays us up around swipe, so as long as I play around swipe, I won't lose too much tempo. Right now he does use Wild Growth. He's looking for answers in order to clear my board, but it's really hard for him to clear my board because my creatures are quite sticky at the same time. Let's say he kills a Belcher. Well, there's a 1/2 token, and right now I play Dr. Boom. Luckily I saved the BGH. That was one of the reasons why I didn't play BGH on the board, just to push for damage, because I can't really handle Dr. Boom if it does come down, right? So right now he's debating if he should trade the 3/2 or the 3/5. I really think it doesn't really matter. They're both about the same thing. So right now it's pretty good. I can trade off the 5, like the lore with the Argus, hit a token to see what it hits, doesn't kill my Creeper, which is really good at the same time. So I'm probably gonna hit Sludge Belcher into the face so my boom bots don't potentially kill off my Belcher, which never will actually. Then I'm just gonna BGH and just play another Belcher, keeping my board good and strong. By having a lot of taunts, even if he does have combo, he won't kill me off, so that's good. Even if he has a Force of Nature combo, he still can't clear this board with it. So he's actually wild growthing again to look for more answers. I think he needs more than just Force of Nature combo to clear this board. He needs Swipe also. Swipe would be a pretty nice draw. But yeah, as long as he doesn't get it, I'm still in a good position. Right now he does play Darnassus with a Shade. I don't really think that makes much of a difference. Right now I can push a lot of damage. This board looks pretty weak in my opinion, and it looks like I'm quite ahead even with no cards in hand. So I do have an unearthed Raptor. That's actually a very good draw. I can actually use this effect on one of the Sludge Belchers. Some people tell me that you can't really win if you don't draw your Raptor in your opening hand. Well, I drew it in the mid game, or late game I mean, and I'm still winning at the moment. So drawing Raptor, like having Raptor in your opening hand or not having it doesn't really determine the game. So right now I'm using it fairly well late game. So that really proves that Raptor is actually really good throughout the whole game, because it can copy my early creatures, my mid game creature, and my late game creature. And see, this is why this deck is pretty good against Druid. So the last matchup I have for you guys today is against a Freeze Mage. I know that you guys see a Zombie Chow here, and I said I switched it out. I actually did, but this is a slightly outdated video, and this is the only time I actually played against a Freeze Mage, or at least the ones that I got recorded with. So definitely switch out to Zombie Chow for Loot Hoarder. That's actually a lot better. So I really want to, when I play against a mage, I really want to mulligan a fairly slightly early curve. The reason for that is because if it's a tempo mage, I want to outboard them. If it's a mech mage, I want to outboard them at the same time. But if it's a Freeze Mage, I would want more sticky creatures like Pilot or Shredder. Loot Hoarder is good too. Is the reason for that is because I can cycle through my deck. So, but we don't know that. We always assume it's Tempo Mage or Mech Mage because those are the harder matchups compared to the Freeze Mage. I actually think Freeze Mage is actually not that bad. The reason for that is because we have enough sticky creatures. Even if they AoE clear, I still have something on the board to take them down. So this really sucks here. I don't really have much to play, so I'm just gonna take her up and just hit face. So right now the mage did play a mad scientist. I still don't know what type of mage this is, but we can easily test that. We can trade the Zombie Chow into the mad scientist and use my dagger to hit face to see what kind of secret it is. If it's an ice barrier, then it's a Freeze Mage, and since I know that it's a Freeze Mage, I'm going to play the 3/3 SI agent on the board just to push for damage. Regardless, even if it was a Tempo Mage, I'll play it anyways. The reason for that is because I want to have a better board against the Freeze Mage, or I mean the Mage in general. So right now it plays Arcane Intellect. There's nothing really special. It just gives me another free turn. Didn't really play anything. I want to play as much stuff so that I can push as much damage as possible. Pilot Shredder is a perfect card to draw into, because it's all really sticky, and if he tries to do some crazy stuff with like Frost Nova and Doomsayer, I can still have a body on the board to push for damage. So right now a Mad Scientist does go down on the board. It's actually not that bad and does coin in something. So Acolyte of Pain. This is actually a very weird type of play. I don't know what he whoops for, but I think it's slightly weird at the same time. I'm just going to trade my 2/1 into the Mad Scientist. I want to get rid of my Zombie Chow as fast as possible because I don't want to give him health in the late game, which is also one of the reasons why I want to remove Zombie Chow. And I'm going to Argus, and I'm going to push tons of damage. Another Ice Barrier, it is quite bad because it does delay me to push for lethal. So right now, Forgotten Torch is being played. I actually think this card is quite overpowered because it just gives the mage so much utility while giving them burn at the same time. So the Loot Hoarder is not really a big deal. I can easily just play 2 Haunted Creepers and use my dagger to clear the Loot Hoarder so it doesn't damage one of my creatures for the Freeze Mage to easily remove it. So right now, I have a pretty good board. Even if AoE clear, something like a Blizzard comes down, is actually not that bad. I still have the Spiderlings to deal with the Freeze Mage. Another Arcane Intellect. So that doesn't really do much in terms of board. Even so, he does decide to play another secret as well. This is probably Ice Block. So right now I have a lot of options. I have a lot of damage in my hand. I guess somewhat a lot of damage, not really, but it's good enough that I can push damage with. Next turn is Flame Strike, so I'm deciding if I'm going to play a creature or not. So I do decide to push some damage. So I'm going to push the 5/4 with Abusive, and then keep hitting face. I want to push as much damage as possible before he wipes from my board with Flame Strike. I'm probably not going to play the SI or any other creatures. The reason for that is because next turn is a Flame Strike type of turn. I don't think I'm gonna play the SI here, because I don't really want to be playing into Flamestrike. I don't need to overextend if I don't need to. He needs to deal with this board anyways because it's quite threatening at the same time, so I think this board can force up a Flamestrike. After he plays any type of AoE, then I'll push for damage. If he can't deal with this board, I can potentially pop the block at the same time. So right now a Cone of Cold does go down. This is a kind of stall, so which is good for him. Does stall the board and set up for an easier Flamestrike, I guess, if he decides to ping the Haunted Creeper, which does do a slightly full board clear, making my board a lot weaker. So the Acolyte Pain does come down here. So what this means to me is like the Freeze Mage is probably going to look for answers, either for AoE board clear or more damage to finish off the game. There's two things I can do here. Since she has 7 cards in hand, I can mill her, or I can wipe out the Acolyte so she doesn't draw any more. I probably want to wipe out her Acolyte of Pain so that she can't draw into any more cards, but only 1. The reason why I did this instead of milling her is because the 3 cards that she might draw into might bite me in the ass and eventually kill me off. Because that could be Alexstrasza, which is a card that she needed, or anything, an opportunity to just kill me. So that's the reason why I rather kill off the Acolyte and give her 1 draw instead of 3 and milling her for 1, which is not really worth it in my opinion, because I do need to kill her off soon before the late game. So Jeweled Scarab does come down here. That's actually a pretty weird tech. This person is probably playing Reno Jackson. The reason for that is because this person probably replaced 1 Loot Hoarder for Jeweled Scarab, so it can like run one of each copy to make Reno Jackson to activate like more efficiently. So right now it's actually pretty troublesome for me. If she draws into a spell card with the Jeweled Scarab, that would be pretty bad. Emperor Terzin does come down here. Whoa, that's actually pretty annoying. It's because if I don't clear that, then 1 turn kills are actually possible. So I do have an egg. An egg is good because it actually like plays around Flamestrike or any AoE board clear, and I can potentially use my Raptor to copy its effect to make it even more stickier. But I do need to get rid of that Emperor Terzin. I don't feel like I really want to use my phase 2 clear the Terzin, but right now I also want to pop the block at the moment, so I'm calculating what's the most efficient way to put my opponent at 1 before clearing out the Terzin. I'm probably just going to use my Pilot Shredder to clear the Terzin. Before training my Pilot Shredder into the Terzin, I'm going to copy it with my Raptor. The reason why I did this is because it creates a stronger board, so even if he's gonna Flame Strike this board, if he does Flame Strike this board, I do lose all my Spiderlings because I am full on board, so that was a mistake. But at the same time, even if he Flame Strikes this board, I have more than enough damage to clear or to push for lethal. So right now another secret is being played, probably another Ice Block just to buy the Freeze Mage another turn. So this Freeze Mage is going to use the Scarab to pop my Death Rattle and use setting up for a very good Blizzard. The only thing that stays alive is 2 of my Spiderlings with my Raptor, which is pretty okay at the same time. So the Freeze Mage does play the Doomsayer. I'm going to play the 2 eggs so the Doomsayer can cook them so the Nerubians can come out. And then yeah, and then my 2 Haunted Creeperlings, I'm going to attack it with the Doomsayer. And then a Knife Juggler comes out with the 2 Nerubians and pushing for lethal. And that's how I won against the Freeze Mage. And I'm really sorry about that because that's the RNG gods on my side. So if you thought this video was helpful, please share to your friends and give me a like and also subscribe to me so that you guys will stay updated with my future videos. Stay gold, Herminators.